Hey, Shane from Gemini Garage, and 2006 Jeep TJ, complete HVAC or complete air conditioning and heater rework on this. We're going to do a new evaporator core, heater core, blower motor resistor, the dash controls, under the hood, compressor, hoses, condenser, the whole thing. So all brand new, needs to all be replaced, and this has had some work done on it before at one time, so a little bit of a backstory on it. So should be an interesting project, so stick with me. Alright, well, first things first, before I start getting too into the mechanicals or the backstory or anything else with this, first thing we need to do is kind of get it ready to start taking apart a little bit. Especially if you're working on somebody else's stuff, they're going to have stuff. This already had a deducting, and if you're like, deducting, what is he talking about? There's a lot of ducts in this Jeep, and if you're like, what? These little plastic ducts, if you live in Oregon, and I'm just not even going to get into it, you can look it up. Anyways, I already had to put a bunch of ducts away. The next thing you can do is take off the dash mat. They usually got some Velcro on there. Just take that off like that. I usually will take a paper shopping bag, put some stuff in there. So I'm just going to put this in there like that. Put it in the back here. Alright. Next, you want to take the glove. Oh, yeah. Missed one. I think this one's like a Donatella duck. I don't know. Okay. Take the glove box out. There's this little strap right here that goes into this little thing right there. You just take that out, fold it down, and pull it out, and it comes out like that. I'm going to go set this in the back here. All right. So we got that done. Next, because of where I'm standing right here, this plastic strip right here just pretty much pops off of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my wonderful little pry tool and pop that up a little bit, and maybe I'll roll this window down. And I can see if I can have this in frame. I'll be talking to you while I'm doing it there. Alright. Whoops. Okay. Right back. Okay, so this thing here just pretty much, I believe, pops up off here, yeah. Like I said, I've had this off of here before. And stuff like this is going to break, especially if your vehicle's been sitting in the sun, so I'm pretty sure you can get replacements for most of this stuff. And if you can't, there's probably a way to fix most of it to where it would work acceptably. And when I say work acceptably, it is a Jeep. You can, get creative with it if you need to. I'm going to go ahead. I got a little pile with the glove box thing. I got a little pile of trim parts I'm going to set over here, and I'll eventually make a little bit of room in the back and put them in there. So let's see, where are we now? Next, because the whole dash has got to come back, and sometimes you can leave the console in, other times you can take it out. Sometimes you can kind of loosen the steering column, and other times they say drop it. So depending on how much room I have and what works and what doesn't work is kind of going to depend on how far into it I go. So again, I'm going to go ahead and get this panel off here, because I know that one's next. And Also, first thing you want to, on this thing, you want to chalk, make sure you chalk the wheels. I chalk the front and the back wheel because you don't know if you're going to have to put the emergency brake down or take it out of gear, and you just don't want to have to worry about if you remember to chalk the tires or not. So first thing you should really do before you start tearing this thing apart to do this, at least if you're sitting, you know, on a driveway with an incline, which you very well might be. So all right, with that, I'm going to go get the tools to get that off of there and go from there. All right, we're back and got a screwdriver. Just looking at something there on the window. Okay, back, just a Phillips head screwdriver. The other thing you got to remember too is when you're taking this stuff apart, especially the dash, you're going to have, you know, custom and extra wiring for stereos, alarm systems, lights, you know, winches, whatever, you know, aftermarket. You're going to have all kinds of wiring and stuff, so you may have other switches, other wiring that's not there, so you're going to have to, you're just going to have to deal with that stuff as you come across it and unhook it, you know, having a pen with some different colored masking tape so you can put the wires back on like you're supposed to. One long screw out of there, other one out of here. This thing kind of pops off of there too. And again, we've got the fog light wiring right here. So we can do a couple different things. We can either unwire it and label it, or we can just unscrew the switch from the front here and leave the panel. And I think that's what I'm going to do. That's almost easier at this point. Again, if I'm mufflated talking down here into the dash, I had a choice of either disconnecting the wiring from this switch or just taking the switch out of the panel, and so I just took the switch out of the panel. This is for the fog lights. So anyways, all right. And again, this panel had 2 screws. So far we've removed the glove box. We've removed this top panel here. Neither one of those any screws. And then this panel here, 2 screws, popped it off. So with that, I'm going to regroup a little bit and get ready to do the next step. Okay, just again to recap what I've done so far, we've taken the glove box out, which basically you just open the glove box door, you slide this little strap out of the glove box, let the door down a little bit more, and then pull the whole glove box out. Then there's this top strip that went up here, and that, as we all know, just popped out of there. So you just take a plastic trim tool or something else and just every few inches just pop it up, and that will come out. And then the trim panel that's under the steering column there, that was 2 screws. It pops off, and then it had a fog light switch going to it, which I just pulled the switch out of the panel. So just kind of a quick recap there on where we're at. And one more quick step real quick. There's a couple things I'm going to remove. This here is basically it's a digital speedometer, GPS speedometer type of a thing that the owners got mounted on the steering column in front of the original speedometer. It's actually kind of nice. It's easier to tell what speed you're going, but at any rate, it plugs in. It's got a little wire going down here, and it just plugs into this accessory port right here. And then there's another little thing that's plugged into here. This is some wiring that runs back to a plug that's in this console here. So we just unplugged that. So I think we're about it for having to disconnect anything that's too wired in here. All the rest of this stuff should pull forward and come back when we actually loosen all the bolts to pull the dash, which is why you got to drop the steering column down. And since you're pulling the whole dash out, you got to figure out, how far back you're going to, go with this, or we're going to, I'm probably just going to take the shift knob out. You maybe want to take the console out. You maybe, like I said, it's going to depend on your vehicle and, a lot of other variables as to, kind of what you need to take apart and how you need to take it apart. So, the basics of the dash and all that will come apart the same. But, as I said before, depending on your shifter and console layout, maybe you got an aftermarket shifter or something in there, So, anyways, just kind of pay attention to all of that. That's what's going to happen is this whole dash is kind of going to come back. If you drop the steering column down but don't take it out or drop it all the way, I think they kind of pull the dash back sort of more on that side than this side, where you kind of pull it back far enough that way to get the heater core and the evaporator core out. But you got to be careful doing that too. You don't want to damage anything. So once again, we're kind of just going to play it by ear as far as what we got to take apart and what we don't. We want to try and do a good job and not, beat anything up. So, and that a lot of times happens with these kind of jobs. So with that, I'm going to go do a little bit of research and make sure my steps are kind of in order here, and we will get back to it. Okay, real quick, there's a couple more things I wanted to do in here before I moved under the hood. One nice thing about Jeeps is the hinges are basically just these little straps here. So if you pull this strap off this post here, you can open the door, all the way, go in the other direction a little bit. Take a rope or a piece of tape or something and kind of tie it off or tape it off so that it stays open. Gives you a lot more room to work. But real fast, since I'm going to be in here and on the floor and messing around with this kind of stuff, I'm going to go ahead and take the seat covers off. I'm going to take the floor mats out. These are those nice hard plastic WeatherTech ones, so I'm going to take them out and wash them off, and then I'm going to put them back in. That way if I drop any nuts or bolts, they'll be caught in there, and it'll be just kind of a nice surface to work on, since I'm going to be in here and under the dash and everything. So with that, I'm going to get these seat covers out of here and wash these things up and stuff them back in there. Okay, got the seat covers out, and again, if you're going to be down on the dash, you don't really need to be rolling around in all that mess and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to hose those suckers off and throw them back in here and get back to it. Okay, well, we got the seat covers off, the floor mats cleaned up and put back in, and the shift knob removed, in addition to the other stuff we've already done. So also remember, whenever you're messing with any of this stuff, we're going to start taking this apart. These things have airbags in them, so you don't want to get tagged with an airbag. So do some research on those, and then I'm going to go over it a little bit later in the video too, of what you're supposed to do with that. But just be forewarned, don't start just taking stuff apart any further until you remember that there are airbags in this thing. And with that, we need to move under the hood, because we're getting to the point where we need to start disconnecting some stuff underneath there. So, and there's a lot to go over with air conditioning and removing the stuff underneath there and disconnecting it. So with that, I'll meet you under the hood. Okay, so back under the hood here, and a little bit of talk about air conditioners and air conditioning and high pressure hoses. And I really didn't want this to turn into a tutorial about air conditioning and all these gauges and all this, but it may turn into a little bit of one just, out of, for safety's sake. So let's start out by showing you the lines under here that we're going to really need to get to. And that's back over here. These two lines here are the air conditioning lines, and these two other lines here are the heater core lines. The evaporator core for the air conditioner and the heater core are both kind of in this little plastic box tucked back between the dash. Well, they're actually kind of in the dash part. That's why you got to pull the dash back to get that heater core and that evaporator core out. The little holes, so the ports, or I guess you should say where you put the hoses on, that's for the heater core come out right here, and then for the evaporator core right here. The evaporator core, where this hooks up here, or your for your air conditioner, these lines under a normal functioning situation are pressurized, very, very highly pressurized. And that's another thing. Anytime you're working with any of this stuff is kind of an absolute with gloves. You won't catch me without my gloves on very often when I'm messing with this stuff, because I tend to kind of remember that. So you always be very, very careful when you're working with any kind of air conditioning or high pressure stuff like this kind of stuff. So with that, what we really want to do now is we want to make sure. Let me take the camera off here real quick and shaky camera alert here, and just show you up close here what we got to do. Okay, these are the two air conditioning lines here. There's our clips right here. You undo these clips a certain way at the bottom, pull the clips off. One of these goes inside the other, so you basically have some aluminum tubing with an O-ring on the outside of it, and then this tubing here slides over the top of it. And then over here you've got your heater core hoses. This one says 11/16. I don't know what the one underneath here is, if it's a 5/8, ½ inch or what. These have little spring clips, clamps on there. You can get to those with channel lock pliers or a pair of slip joint pliers if they're, you open up the jaws on them to get over that. And that's how those come off. But before we even think about wanting to disconnect this, what we need to do is we need to see how much, if any, pressure is still in the system. And you want to do that for a couple different reasons. First of all, you don't want to be taking air conditioning lines off if they're still pressurized. And second, there is the environment to think about, and you really don't want to waste, if there's too much Freon or anything in there, you really don't want to waste a whole bunch of it. There's no sense in doing that. So what we're going to do is see whether or not there's enough. If you've got a certain amount of Freon in there, you need to take it someplace and have it evacuated. Now, sometimes you might have a vehicle that you buy, maybe the air conditioning, maybe the hose is missing, or maybe the compressor's not on there, or maybe there's obviously no Freon left in the system, right? That you don't have to worry about. But when you've got something like this, that the hoses are all hooked up and there's nothing, obviously disconnected or exploded on it, you want to make sure it's not still pressurized. There are a couple different ways to do that. You could kind of do it if you're pretty sure that it's empty. If you put some gloves on, there's two ports, a high side port, which is this one, and a low side port, which is this one. The low side's the one that you put the Freon in, but we'll get to that way down the road. But back to testing the pressure. If you're really rednecking it, make sure you got some good gloves on. Maybe have a screwdriver that's, bent at a 90 degree or with a pick on the end of it, or just, probably a little bit safer method even than how I'm doing this. But you see what I'm pushing in there? That's just nothing. That's just like some residual pressure in there. Sometimes it can even be just a little bit of air pressure. That's nothing. If that was actually a pressurized air conditioning system, that would just come fogging out of there. And it would be colder than hell, and you would be like, okay, there's still a lot left in there. Like I said, if you push on this and it's very high pressure and you can see it and it's cold, then it's still got a lot in there, and you should take it and have it evacuated. Something a little bit safer than the screwdriver method. Obviously these gauges, but there's another step between these. And that would be one of these cheapo gauges here. These come with Freon to add to your vehicle or to fill your vehicle with, and then they come by themselves too. You can stick one of these on your high pressure side here. This is exactly what you would be doing to fill it. You'd put your bottle of Freon on here. You know, these come with a seal on there. You pull this thing off of there, you put this on the bottle, and you put this thing on there, and this gauge here, it's when you do it when it's running, of course, but you don't need to do that to test to see if there's pressure in here right now. Either or, you can do it with it running or with it off. But you can see here this needle is pretty much 0. And if you pull in on this trigger here, there's just that little residual pressure in there barely coming out of there. So you know the system's pretty much empty, or it's certainly not fully charged. You know, now if this needle was way up here or anywhere, you know, if it was way up here or anywhere near the green or anything, then you know there's probably a lot of stuff still in there, and you should take it and have it evacuated. I do recommend getting these gauges because they're not overly expensive and it is nice to have. These are nice to have because where these types of gauges really shine isn't so much for filling your system. It's really for diagnosing what's wrong with them. There's all kinds of different pressures, and as your air conditioner cycling that these are supposed to read. I'm not an expert by any means on all of that. But the big thing with these over some of these other gauges is this one's got it's got a hose and a gauge for the high side, as to where the other ones just show you the low side pressure. So again, we can put that hose on there and there's really no pressure on there. And we can take and put this one on our low side and there's really nothing going on there. So, you know, if you hear any hissing at all or just a little residual air, you can go ahead and just leave these on there and crack them open until, you know, you should be fine. But again, if you were to plug these in here and these gauges were to go up, or especially this one here, if it's, you know, reading anything in there, then you know you want to take it in and have it evacuated. Like I said, there are times when you're missing a hose or missing part of the air conditioner, or it's obvious that there's no Freon in there. But you want to make sure, for you know, like I said, it's an environmental thing and for safety's sake, because you don't want to try and open up a system that's pressurized unless you test it, and if it's got a lot in there, you don't want to let it all out. So, kind of a win-win situation there, really. So, and kind of a necessary thing when you're working on air conditioners. It's just if you know what you're doing, or even if you're learning, you will save more than enough money repairing your own air conditioner to make it worthwhile taking it in and having the old stuff evacuated. So, like I said, kind of a win-win situation there. So, okay, once again, we're pretty much sure that this thing doesn't have anything in it. We've checked it a couple different ways. We checked it with the screwdriver method. We checked it with the cheapy gauge here, and then with these here. So it's probably pretty safe to unhook those hoses right there and undo that. And then from that point on, we'll focus on the inside again. So with that, stick with me. Alright, well, there's the clips there. And there's really not much to undoing them. Like I said, we got our gauge on there. We're still, I think the pressure's pretty much bled off of there. So, now, on this particular vehicle, I've got the hood that comes around right here. Now, just for safety's sake, like I said, the gauge, it should be empty, shouldn't be a problem, but you always want to be safe. And by the way, for some reason there's ever a time where you're doing something to a vehicle and you're just really, you're bound and determined that you're going to do it, right? But you're fearful. There is no shame in wearing like a full face motorcycle helmet, and you know, if you need to suit up to do something, then you know there's no shame in doing that at all. Just so you know. Well, that one just pops off of there like that. And that one almost fell off of there, if something could fall upwards. So now we're going to just kind of wiggle these hoses, these lines here. Oh, I forget. These have those spring clip things on there. You have to put this special removal tool on there. So I do have one of those, so let me go figure out which one of those that is. Alright, so trying to figure out how to get this on camera exactly. I already did this one, kind of. This is one of those things you don't necessarily mean to do it, but once you do it, it's done. And what I mean is, let's see if I can crawl up here. That's just a screwdriver. You use these. This is some special tools. These are fuel line and air conditioning disconnect tools. I'll show you the full kit in a minute. But what you do is you put these things on here like this. There's a little spring in here that goes around here, and it catches on this tubing in here, and it clamps on there. So all modern fuel filters and fuel lines excuse me, and air conditioning lines are like that. So sometimes you got to kind of wiggle the line around a little bit and push it forward a little bit, and then you take this thing here and you kind of push it in there, and I don't know how to explain it. You can feel it release. Sometimes these things come off pretty good, and then other times they are stubborn as hell. This is one of those things that's not a bad idea, to make sure that it's clean. Wash it really good, clean it really good, maybe soak it, with some WD-40 or PB Blaster or some type of penetrating oil. Anything if it's, if they're really, really old and crusty. These aren't too bad. But anyways, and then you can just kind of feel it pop a little bit, and then you can start to kind of feel this hose sort of, and you can see it's just kind of working its way back there. So it's loose on there, so I'm just going to leave it like that. That way, I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we're going to try, these are different sizes. So this one's still on there. So we're going to, I think this is the size. You might have to fiddle around with the sizes with these things to get the right ones. This one might be, let's see. This might be the right size. I'll see. And I think we're going to need the next, I think the green ones. No, I guess the orange one's bigger than the green one, but smaller than the white one. So we're going to be using the orange one, it looks like, on this here. Again, it kind of helps to push forward on the line a little bit. Okay, I believe this one's I think almost moving back and forth quite a bit. Like I said, sometimes these things are okay. Yeah, it's back far enough. I'm starting to see the O-ring now. So this is bolted to this the canister, evaporator canister here, or it's not the evaporator canister. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's bolted to this right here. That's another thing you can do, is unbolt these lines here. In addition to give you more flexibility here, and then relieve any little bit of pressure that might be in there. But this thing's off of there, so we're good. And this thing down here is going to get replaced too, so yeah, we're good. Got these lines off there. Alright, I'll crawl out of here. Alright, real fast, if that's possible for me to do. I'm going to put all these things back on here and show you this fuel line kit real quick, just so you know. These are cheap. they work. If you have to do this stuff all the time, you know, you probably want a better set. These are not bad to have. Just, I mean, they're cheap enough. It's worth just having these, you know, even to put in the car or RV or bring with you or whatever. But again, like that. Let me back up here. All right. Sorry about all that shaking there. That there comes in a kit like this. And you know, it's a little chintzy, but it's definitely it'll definitely, if your fittings are clean and you clean all this stuff, and that, it helps, because the cleaner that stuff is, the easier it'll come apart. These things are plastic and, like I said, can be a little bit temperamental sometimes. So, but if your fittings and everything are really clean and oiled really well, and you know, use the right one, don't try and force the wrong one. These work pretty good for what they are. And there's a lot of different kinds of those kits and the different sizes, and you know, that's probably one of the more nicer El Cheapos. But okay, so next what we're going to do, I'm going to get this stuff off of here, these gauges off of here, and put away, and I'll be back with the next what we're going to do next. So stick with me. All right, so back here today, and so what we're going to do now is, the one thing you really need to do to discharge or disconnect the so the airbags won't go off, is disconnect the battery and let it sit for 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take this battery out because it's been in here for a while. It's an old battery. The owner may want to replace it. It's working okay, but it's let's see, 2019, so it's been in there a while now. But I'm going to take it out and clean it up. Clean up the terminals and whatever while it's out, because like I said, it's been in there for a little while without being cleaned. So but yeah, you want to take the battery out if you're going to neutralize the airbags there. Let me grab a wrench. So to get this battery tray now, okay, let me do a little shaky camera here so I can kind of show you what's going on here. So we got these battery terminals here. We got the positive one here, and this one you got to be careful of. I mean, you can't just put a normal socket. You got to be careful, because this terminal is so close to the body here that's a serious problem there from arcing. So be careful whatever wrench you put on here. Don't put a long old socket on there and think you're going to stick it across there and wrench that off of there, because you're going to get woken up. And then we got the other one, the negative battery post here. I've got a small little crescent wrench that's, I usually don't put these things on super tight, and I usually try to make sure they're oiled and the threads are good, so these should come off fairly easily, because like I said, I've had these off of here and the battery out before. But then this bolt, I don't know if I can get a good angle on it. It's down in there. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. If I can get some light down in there. Down in there, there's this little plastic wedge, and there's a bolt that goes through there and holds that wedge down against the battery. The problem is that bolt is, I mean, you know, it gets all gunked up with battery acid, and it gets water and rusty, and it's just, that bolt is very susceptible to breaking off. So I went ahead and sprayed some WD-40 and stuff on there. You need to as well, although the bolt might be, you know, too far gone. So just a little note about the battery on this. You do not have to remove the battery to, as I said, if you look in here, you've got enough room. You're going to be, excuse the word, Ducatello sitting here. You got these two lines here that are going to come off, and this canister right here is going to come out of here, and the lines kind of run, you know, this way, but you don't have to take the battery out, but it gives you a little more room, and like I said, it's time for it to come out. And anyways, which again, taking it out when you clean the terminals, taking it out's actually a good idea, because then you get to clean up that bolt every once in a while. So probably not a bad idea to take that bolt out once or twice a year, and if you've still got one that's not messed up. If you've got one that's completely busted off, you could probably drill it out, put a different bolt or a different setup in there, or get a new battery tray, aftermarket battery tray. I'm sure there's a gazillion fixes for that. So all right, on with actually disconnecting it and taking it out of here. So let's see, make sure I got the camera frame here. So this one here, just going to loosen this up. Like I said, I never put these on there super tight. I like to have them kind of on there tight as you can get it, but yet if you really needed to pull it off in a hurry, you maybe could get it off of there. Not quite sure how to explain that, but if you've ever had to, disconnect a battery from a car in a hurry. Okay, so we should be good to go for getting both these terminals off. Let me grab a couple rags. Actually, I just got this cardboard paper towel tube here. I was going to take an old sock or rag or something and put it over these terminals, but just to keep them from touching. But let me get this one off. Not that it really matters when they're disconnected, but just to keep them from whacking the battery until I get them both off of there. Okay. Alright, let me get around to this side of the camera here. Between the camera tripod here and this hood prop rod here, it's turning into an amusement park ride. Okay, so we've got a little bit of extra wiring here because of the fog lights and all that stuff, so we can kind of take it. Bet this out of the way a little bit here. Now, that bolt that I was telling you about to oil really well, that is a 10 millimeter. Naturally, because why wouldn't the battery hold down bolt on a Jeep be a 10 millimeter, right? Okay. And again, this one's coming out okay because it's probably been out in the last year or two, and I put some oil on it, and I try to keep the battery clean. I've been trying to switch all my batteries over to the lead-free, at least the ones that aren't liquid lead. I've been trying to switch all my batteries over the last several years to those because they do help keep it a lot cleaner in the engine compartment. And it, makes your cables and everything else last a lot longer, so. Oh. Again, this is another one you could use an air ratchet on. It's a long one. Either that or there's a nut on the bottom side that's just spinning. Nope, it's just a long one. Lots of threads to corrode. Okay. All right. Yeah, lots of threads. And this, I mean, seriously, the best thing they could have done for that situation was just to put in like a 1/4 inch, a much larger bolt. That way, because like I said, it's not going to take much rusting on something like that before it. And here's the tray. Like I said, there's plastic battery tray, and these batteries have kind of little wedge-shaped little tabs on the front and the back, and the back side slides up against this tab, and then this goes up against the front side of the tab, and then this goes in there. But you can see this is just a holding hotbed for all that acid and dirt and water, and it's just like, I mean, they could have at least kind of rounded this off so that it wouldn't collect so much garbage, but whatever. I mean, the guy that came up with this, you know, he probably knows somebody that works at the battery factory and figures he'll throw him a little extra business. I don't know. So this is going to go over by the faucet because this needs to get hosed off. And again, really not a bad idea to be wearing gloves while you're doing this. You know, practice what you preach. Now let's see, I believe to get the battery out of this thing, you need to put the hood all the way back. Otherwise it's kind of a biatch. I don't know how I'm going to do that from this angle here. This ought to be entertaining. All right. All right. Take this over and set it in the needs to be cleaned pile. Okay, so we got a better shot down in there. A real good shot at the lines and everything now, so I think I'll pop this camera off of here real quick and we'll have a look. So again, this whole thing is going to come off. You can unbolt these lines individually from this canister here, which I'll probably do. And then this canister has a band clamp, like a strap that goes around it, and it's bolted to the firewall in a couple spots. And then there's I don't know if you can see it, but there's a screw down here, like a bolt-headed screw, and you loosen that and it loosens this clamp and this thing just slides up out of there. So you basically, you know, you do what we just did and unhook these lines. You take these two things off of here, you loosen that clamp, and then pull that whole canister up. So, and then the other reason too is you can see the battery tray gets a little bit nasty. This one's not too bad, but you can see, I mean, there's there's, you know, stuff right around that hole where that bolt hole is for that bolt. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit, and you know, 4 bolts to get this whole battery tray out, so that's not too much of a chore. If you've got a battery tray that's like this, and maybe this is a little gooed up, or maybe it's not, you know, maybe you got some real problems over here, but the rest of it's not too bad, make sure you put some soaking and penetrating oil on these bolts too. And if you take the battery tray out, you know, put some grease or something on these bolts. You know, try and protect these, because if your battery tray gets screwed up, taking it out ain't that big of a deal if these bolts here aren't screwed up. So once again, did not mean to get off on these tutorials, but since I'm in the neighborhood and doing all of it, you know, it's I like to be thorough, and you know, it's all stuff you guys are going to run into, and it's just kind of like, why not if you're there, you know what I mean? Once again, this is a project where you don't want to try and necessarily do it overnight or maybe even over the weekend. This is something that you want to say, okay, I'm going to take a couple of weeks, get as many of the parts as I can. You're still going to have some stuff you're going to need to get here and there, and do it right, because this year Jeep, these are probably this is probably the newest. The 06s, that's probably the newest I would want for one of these. This with this engine and that. This is, you know, so these are good. These are pretty good vehicles to work on. I mean, you know, they've definitely got their issues, but for the most part, they're pretty straightforward. A hell of a lot more straightforward than just about anything else you're going to get these days. That's for sure. So, all right. So let's see. Where are we? Got the battery out, got those lines disconnected. Okay, so I guess next on the list for what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to loosen these lines here, and then I'm going to take these heater core lines off of here. Excuse me, Ducatello. I'm going to take these lines off here, and then I'm going to take the hose. You can flush your heater core out, and the reason you'd want to take these hoses off and maybe put your garden hose up and run some water through there is that way it flushes all that old antifreeze or anything in there, rusty water, whatever's in there out of there. It flushes all that out of there so that when you're pulling the dash back and having to empty this out, at least if some stuff's spilling around in your car, at least it's not, you know, antifreeze or rusty water or whatever may be in your left in your heater core. You know, and your heater core may have already been leaking to begin with. So, but anyways, this did have a heater core replacement about a year ago. I'll get into the details of that. It seemed like there was some stuff that just was not quite right with it after they replaced it, but you know, I'll get into that at a later time. And then just this last year, the air conditioning quit working, so I just decided just to go ahead and just do the whole thing, because you know, while you're there, right? So I'm going to shut this off, get the tools I need to undo that, and take those things off of there. And then after that, those next couple of steps there, we're going to be back to the inside and on the dash again. So stick with me. Okay. All right. So we're going to crack those loose. Those bolts loose there. Those nuts. Those are 1/2 inch. Using a deep socket, and putting the socket on, and then putting the ratchet and extension on a little easier to get to. Those weren't on there very tight. Move Ducatello here. I say Ducatello because to me that looks like basically I'm thinking that's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle duck, but you know, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that's what that is. Okay, so we're going to take these off. A couple extra nuts for you to hang on to there. You know, never a bad idea to keep your old hardware. Might need it for something. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so those just basically will pry off of there and come loose. Now I'm going to loosen the clamp over here. And it's a an 8mm. And there's also a little brace right here that holds these two lines together that's going to have to come off too. I believe that comes off of there so that those two lines can go back into the firewall there. When I say I believe, I don't think there's a slot for that to go through there. I think that's part of what holds it, braces it there. So. Okay. All right. So that canister's already starting to hang down there and droop down there. So I'm going to put my gloves on real quick. And all right. Okay, I got this thing off of here. That's lay this down. This line over here wanted to drip a little bit of oil, so I'm just putting the paper towel under it. Okay, so let's see here. Alright, well, we've basically got all our lines undone here. So I'm just going to leave these in there just because. Just kind of let it sit in there. I'm going to take this clamp off of here. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to go for these lines up here on these heater core here. I'm not going to pull the lines all the way off right just yet, but I'm going to take these clamps off of here. Like I said, this is a pair of channel locks. Now let's see. Yeah, I can still get in here. This one's a little bit tighter fit the way they've got the clamp on here, but that's the other thing too. Whenever you're putting a vehicle back together, you kind of try to be aware of what direction your clamps are oriented, meaning, you know, if it's a screw worm drive clamp or one of these spring clamps, you know, try and put it someplace where it's easy to get to this, you know. Try so it's, you're not putting that on the bottom side or someplace it's difficult to get to, because it might be easy to slide this thing up over here when this isn't in here, but when you put a new core, you know, there's all kinds of things that might cause you to not have those lined right, and it makes it more difficult when you go to take it apart. So okay, just got a blast of sunlight coming in there all of a sudden. All right, so let's see. All right, so now we've got this little clamp thing there. I'm going to take that off. Now these heater lines here, there's a couple of options you have. You can leave them on there and just cut them off and flush them. You can pull them up. It depends on if your lines, of course, are old or need to be replaced or not. So you've got some flexibility there with what you do with those. Those are just your regular rubber heater core lines. So, and this socket here is the same one for the, oh, by the way, that canister clamp fell down here on the ground, so let me grab that real quick. Oh, I'm not sure how this thing was. Oh, I see. Okay. There's a slotted thing in there that this goes into. You'll see it. Alright, so I'm going to set this down. Go after this a little bit more here and get this off of here. Okay, that's a small screw, so I'm going to take my gloves off so I've got a little bit more articulation here. And then this just comes off, the bottom part's the nut, so this just comes off like this here. Let me get zoomed too far in. It just comes off like this here. So, and one side's bigger than the other, so because the lines are different size. So be wary of that when you put that back on there. So okay, yeah. All right, yeah, we're basically ready to move into the inside, and then once we get in there and get ready to pull it back, we'll come back out here and break these hoses loose. And I'm just kind of leaving them on there for right now, because when I pull them off, there's, you know, going to start dripping a little bit and leaking some antifreeze and stuff. And you know, I'll get to that. Like I said, I'll just pull those off and either hose the heater core out or have the hose ready to kind of clean it out in there, or you know, stuff something in these hoses to kind of block them off a little bit. So and I'm also going to, now I'm going to set this hood forward again. I'm going to bring it back over. Okay. Alright. it's nice to have that hood fold open, but it's also nice to have the shade too. So, and I don't really have anything too much more I'm doing under here, so right now. So. All right. So with that, I'm going to, sorry this is dragging. I got to figure out what I need to do next, and we'll regroup and come back and get back at it. I think the next steps is going to be in the inside, probably taking some bolts out of the dash, holding it up there, and lowering the steering column. So stick with me. Okay, so we still have quite a few things to do in the interior here, so let me go around to the other side here. Hoping the audio is a little bit better. I'm fighting the audio with this camera, so I'm trying to get some better microphones. So, all right, that is, it looks like a Christmas duck, I'm guessing, because it's got like a snowflake around its neck, but it kind of almost looks like like a Cinco de Mayo duck or something. I don't know why, like it looks like it. So I'm just going to, since this duck's, I think, just ready to party no matter what, I'm just going to kind of refer to this as Fiesta duck. So we're going to set Fiesta duck over here. And we do need to remove this center trim piece here. And so to do that, and a lot of times these screws are broken. There's a couple of Phillips head, or you can use a small socket on them. Screws here. I'm just going to set these in the cup holder for now. Not a bad idea to take some nice painter's tape, just stuff that doesn't leave any residue, and you can sometimes tape your screws to the parts. That sometimes is a good idea. Okay, now let's see if I remember right. We just pull it back down there, or up there, and then basically do the same thing down here. I'm having a hard time getting my arm in there. Like I said, I tend to be more of an engine and transmission guy because a little less plastic involved with those things. Okay. Alright, so we're going to set this here, and again, this is your whole center piece comes off. It's 2 screws on the top right there. And I had to go check my camera here. Okay, next, I believe what we need to do is lower the steering column. But I'm going to safely put this thing in the back. And there's screws up here too that also need to be removed. But anyways, like I said, I'm going to put this someplace safe and double check on the next steps here, and we'll get back to it. All right, well, today I guess we've got quite a bit more we need to do in the interior here. So today I guess I'm going to show you how to remove a cluster. That's this part right here. So let's see, you've got 2 screws. You got one here and one here. They're Phillips head or 1/4 inch. And then you've got 1, 2, 3 of them up here, I believe. 1, 2, 3. So we'll start by getting those off. Kind of in there at an angle, so you got to pay attention to that. Probably be better off using a ratchet. I thought this breaker bar little thing here would be better, but I'm thinking I'm going to grab the ratchet on that one. Quarter inch ratchet and a wobble extension. And again, this is the 1/4 inch socket on here. And the extension's probably too long on there, so fastest way is to probably just go down and loosen them all. And you definitely don't want to over tighten these when you're putting them back on. Just snug them down, because this stuff's plastic, so. Yeah. Loosen them like that, and put your extension on there. Get them out by hand. Again, we can set them down in the floor mat for now. Another reason to clean the floor mats and leave them in here. It's a good place to put your nuts and bolts temporarily when you're taking stuff apart. No washers or anything on these, just screw. All right. Okay, like I said, that's a total of 5 screws. 1, 2, 3 up here, and 1 down there, and 1 down there. Do make sure you double check and look, because even though some of these are the same year, you know, there are sometimes slight changes here and there, or maybe someone forgot to put a screw back in, or maybe something cracked and was broken and someone added another one. You just never know. So make sure you look, and when you've loosened everything that you think you are, still kind of check and make sure, because you never know. If it doesn't start kind of coming free, then, you know, it should just come off of there. So, you know, if anything's preventing it from just coming off of there, you know, do a little more investigating and see what's the problem. But you can see this here, it's got the 3 holes in the top here, and then the 2 tabs down at the bottom. And I would imagine quite a lot of these probably end up broken, just due to age and getting smacked here and there. Okay, so next we're going to take the actual cluster out. So we're basically just going to do the same thing. Let's see how many we got here. We got 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 for the cluster. And again, you can see they're not on there very tight. I mean, just a little bit snug down, and that's about it. Let's loosen these bottom ones here. I think you could probably lower the steering column. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. There's a screw here, but that's for the dash. There's the one for the clusters here. So there's 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 up here for the cluster. My bad there. Alright. Same drill. Get these bottom ones out. And these are the same size screws as the cluster bezel. So I'm going to take these cluster bezel screws here for this here, these 5, and I'm going to set them right here on the seat, and then I'm going to take some tape and tape them to the back side of that. And then I'm going to take these screws out of here and tape them to the back side of this. Doesn't really matter, you could have them all together because these are all the same, but just, you know, it makes it so much easier when you're putting it back together, because by then you're tired and you're trying to put it back together. And I mean, I'll tell you what, I've had some projects where, you know, it's like maybe every screw is the same except 1 or 2, and you get to the end and you've put them all in there, and then the next thing you know, yeah, there's that one screw that's a little too long or it's a little bit too short, and yeah, you got to take them all out or half of them out and figure out where you put what. Okay, I think what have we got here? Yeah, okay, that's 4 screws there, so we're good to go. Alright. Okay, and then we're going to have an electrical plug on the back of this, 2 of them. And just pinch this little thing right here on the side and pull it out. That was easy enough. And this one here, It's the same thing except the little clip that you squeeze is on the opposite side. So this little clip is here, you squeeze it this one, and that one's on the inside. And you squeeze it with that hand. So 2 plugs, and you're off of here. So, alright, and that is your instrument cluster removal. That's pretty straightforward. That is probably, honestly, as far as cars go, I mean, I worked on a lot of cars. That's probably about the most straightforward instrument cluster removal you're ever going to get. So, big +1 for that. And again, you could kind of take these wires here. I'm just kind of going to leave them hang here because sometimes if you put these wires back up and tuck them back up in there, sometimes you kind of forget that they're there, and then when you go to put it together, maybe this one's hanging down, so you hook up that one, but you forget, you know. So I'll probably do something with these, you know, before I start, excuse me, to pull all this back. But okay, so now I think the next thing I need to do is lower the steering column. And then there's also an airbag connector over there that needs to be undone. And then after that, there are some screws in the top here. And then these Torx bits that are on the side here. 1, 2, 3 on each side. And then I think, I guess I probably need to move the console back too. Like I said, there's a little bit of controversy over whether or not you take the console out or pull the shifter out. Or, I mean, you know, it kind of depends on, again, whether your vehicle's an automatic or a manual, or if it's got an aftermarket shifter, and you know there could be a variety of things going on with your console. So maybe you don't even have the console in it anymore. You know, so there could be a variety of situations going on with that. Like I said, you know, before, when you're taking these things apart, there could be a little screw here and there that, you know, is missing, or that some owner put in there, or there are variants from the factory. So, you know, like I said, just because it's the same year and you see a video that says this, that, and the other, don't just assume, because, you know, it's a mechanical piece of equipment, and the sky's the limit with how much one could vary from another, even though they both came off the assembly line one right after the other. So with that, I'm going to go double check my research and see what we need to do next. The console removal is fairly straightforward. You've got, I believe, 2 bolts on that side down there. You've got 2 on the inside down there, and 1 here, and then I think maybe a couple up here, and I think that's about it. There's not a whole lot holding this front top part in here. So, but we'll check that out. We may, we'll check that out. I'll probably end up doing some of this other stuff before we get around to that. So, all right, with that, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'll return. So stick with me. Okay, just thought I'd get a close-up over here on this side of what's going on. And another reason, too, to disconnect the battery and just take it out at an earlier stage is because you're going to be disconnecting all this stuff, and you're going to have these wires and wire harnesses and stuff laying around. So it's just kind of better to not have any power going to all this stuff. So anyways, again, here are those 2 connectors. This one's got the little pinch clip on this side, and this one's got the little pinch clip on this side. You know, so that's just pretty much what's going on there. So, and the reason that you need to lower the steering column or drop the steering column is because you got this metal brace right here, and so you're going to pull the dash forward. Now you can remove the whole steering column. Some people do that, and that's depending on what you're doing to the vehicle. You know, it's not that much more to just remove it anyways. But the idea is to lower it down, kind of rest it on the seat. And then have enough room to, you know, have it down to where the dash will kind of come back, you know, over this right here, and come back far enough on this side, and then, you know, a little bit further maybe on the other side, so that you can get the heater core, evaporator core box out from behind there, because that's what's behind there. So anyways, there are, I believe, 13mm bolts to remove the steering column, 2 on each side, in this area on this side, and then over there I'll get a little bit clearer shot of those when we get to do that. But again, I just wanted to show a shot of this wiring here and this brace here and what we're doing here to get the steering column lowered down and out of the way. So with that, I'm going to set this back on the other side. I took all those trim piece screws and put some tape and taped into the back of the instrument cluster and the cluster bezel and set those in the back. So good to go there. Good idea to clean the back of your Jeep out when you're doing this. That way you've got some place to put all of your parts in here. That way you can keep it all together no matter what happens. Everything's in here. So it's a good idea to clean the back of it out so you've got room to put all your parts in there. So with that, I shall return. Good reason to clean the back of your vehicle out is so that you've got a place to put all of your spare parts, your extra parts you're taking apart, your instrument cluster, your bezel, all your trim pieces. Keep them nice and safe back here. Just an FYI. And if you're working on a car, maybe the trunk, or and if you don't, if you've got the vehicle that far apart, then maybe a couple of bins. But it's nice to be able to have all your stuff in one spot. So with that, I shall return. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do is, just because you may or may not need to take the console in or out of this thing and this and that, I'm just going to go ahead and remove it. I've already emptied it out, anticipated doing it, so I may as well just remove it so I don't have to worry about it, and then it'll just be some extra information for somebody that does need to remove the console. I'm a little interested to see how it comes out, because you do have this emergency brake handle here, and then you have the four-wheel drive lever there. While I'm standing here jawing about it, this right here just pops out of here, pretty much. Pull this leather boot up here. Good time to clean all this stuff too, That's the other thing too, when you've got this thing apart this far, maybe you need to replace some of this stuff, maybe you need a new bezel, maybe you need a new boot, or a new rubber boot down there. Great time to start replacing some of that stuff. This thing had a transmission swap a couple years ago. It got swapped from the 6-speed that came in it, and it got swapped to an AX15. So brand new AX15. So this is a 5-speed. So a good combination here. It's the still got the inline 6, but it's got the AX15, and it's 2006. So that's a good package there. So, but we're good with all that stuff there. So again, I'm going to regroup a little here and get the appropriate sockets, and we'll start taking this console out of there before we lower the steering column. All right. Okay, so we're going to loosen up this console a little bit and see what we got going on there. Another duck. They're laying all over the place in here, I'm telling you. Okay, so now some of these Jeeps, you just like flip this little plastic thing out of the cup holder, and there's a bolt in there, 10 millimeter. And then this one here, I think they changed the cup holder design, and I don't know, I'm thinking maybe 03, 04, somewhere in there. But they changed it to where you've kind of got this rubber thing that just pulls out, which is really cool if you want to, wash out your cup holder. That was a good idea. But you pull that out, and then underneath here, there's a 10 millimeter bolt. So from what I can see, there's not much holding it in up here. You've got a 10 millimeter here, I believe, yeah, 10 mil here, a 10 mil here, and two 10 millimeters down in here. Well, let's see. Oh wait, okay, no, there's no 10 millimeters in here. This one, they are down on the side somewhere, I believe, or in the back. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I need to come over there and see what's going on over there as far as check the camera here. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to take this boot. Let's see. I had some other stuff that's laying in here. Let's see. That's just extra stuff I'm finding in here in the floorboards and stuff. So, okay. I'm going to take and set this boot back here. Alright. So let's see what we got going on here. I think there's a couple more bolts holding this thing in somewhere. I guess technically speaking, since this is a two-piece here, you'd probably just would only have to, this part unbolts here, you'd probably only have to take this front part out. So let's go ahead and loosen some of these 10 mils and see what we got here. Like I said, no matter what you do, and then I went and left the extension over here. Sometimes no matter what you do, there's little variances in vehicles here and there, so that's just kind of the way that goes here. There's a couple of screws here, but these are for the plastic tunnel thing for the transmission, so you don't take those off. Like I said, you've got one here, one here, and then that should take this part out, and then we'll have to go from there as to what we want to continue to do there. Okay. Put this down on the floor here. And we got this one here. Again, you could use a power tool, electric, whatever, even a drill. But you probably want to put them back on by hand, because that's just, this stuff being plastic, you just don't want to risk breaking it. Okay. Alright, the console is not something that comes out all the time, so it's going to be stubborn. Alright. Okay, what do we got here? Alright, this part's going to come off of here. Let's see, we're going to have to pull this shifter up here. I'm guessing we're going to have to move H.V.A.C duck here, or H.V.A.C duck's going to get squashed. Okay, so I'm thinking we're just going to pull this up. Now, what are we doing here? We're going to kind of pull this up. I think we're going to pull it all the way up, and then, okay. Alright. So yeah, if you got a manual transmission, you're going to want to put the shifter in neutral or wherever, and you're going to want to pull the four-wheel drive lever all the way up to neutral or 4 low. I'm not sure which one I'm in. These shifter levers are kind of janky. Okay, so we're back down there. I probably need to pull it back up again. 4 low there. But anyways, we'll see. So I'm going to take this thing out, and I'm actually going to hose this off. Okay, so That's the front part of the console, and probably the only part you really need to take off. As far as how the rest of this is in here, there's got to be another little screw somewhere back here. It's probably under this rubber in this cup holder back here. That's probably where the other screw is. Let's see if I can get this thing out of here. Yep, two 10 mils back there. You pull this little rubber thing out. There's a double cup holder back in the back of this one, and there's a couple 10 mils back there. Pull that out, and this whole thing's going to come out of there. So, this kind of needs to be cleaned and vacuumed in here anyway, so I'll probably be pulling it out or doing something with it. So, anyways. Alright. Let me regroup myself here. Okay, just a perspective of what we got going on here when we have that part of the console out. There's an extra little wire here that's not factory. This one here. This runs around and goes to the back in a hole in the back side of the console here. There's a 12-volt receptacle in there to plug stuff in, charger and stuff. This runs under the console. It's zip tied to this wire here, and then it goes up there and it plugs into one of these accessory ports. So you could unplug it or unplug it if you didn't want it, you know, charging whatever while it was in here. So anyways, I'm going to remove that wire. Actually, I'm just going to remove the zip tie here. And this console also has a small little CB radio, a little Cobra XL Pro 510 that's stuffed down in there. So I'm just going to take these two 10 mils out and lift this whole thing up and just kind of set it back a little bit so I can kind of clean in here a little bit. Again, those two 10 millimeters on this one, if you can see them, are back there in that cup holder down there. Hopefully you can see that. So anyways, so it's those two 10 millimeters, and this whole thing comes up after you've taken out this one and that one there so that the front part comes up. So let me go set this thing back over on the tripod over here. And all right. So here's our 10 millimeter here. I'm just going to come back here. I'm not sure what I may or may not have to do with that emergency brake there. Why does that not feel like? Okay, these are not 10 millimeter. I went and changed it up. These are a Torx bit. So let me go grab a couple of Torx drivers and see what we got. I don't know why they did that. Okay, we'll see if one of these fits. Yeah, that's a roll. Make everything 10 millimeter and then go a different direction there. That's nice. Okay, so there are two Torx bits, and it's a T27. Two T27s back here in the cup holder. No idea why they would do that. 10 mil the whole way, and then, I don't know. But who knows why they would do a lot of things. A lot of things are afterthoughts on these. Okay. And these bolts that are in the cup holders always tend to be a little nastier because they get stuff spilled down in there and spilled on them, and so you may be doing a little thread cleaning and thread repair to some of these. Set these right here. Oh, let's see what we got. Okay, yeah, we're loose now. So we're just gonna pull this thing up over the shift lever there, or the emergency brake lever there. Make a little bit of room in the back here. Okay. And I think we're good to go there. Just finagle it back here a little bit. Alright, there we go. So we're off of there. And this cord is back here. And we will have plenty of room to clean this up back here a little bit, and we'll be good to go. Alright, so that was that. 227 Torx for the two rear runs, 10 millimeter for that one, and a 10 millimeter for that one. That's the for the front part of the console there. So there you have it.